Apologies on the delay of doing these videos. I know sometimes I'm a little sporadic when I do these, but it's when I want to have a story that really needs to stand out. I need some context and I want to really take some time to talk about it. Is when I go ahead and do episodes like this of when I'm not podcasting. Right now, if you're watching on the video here on YouTube, you're seeing I'm in the studios where I work at full-time webmaster.fm. We're now called the WMR.fm podcast network. We're going to talk about radio, and here's what it is. So I hope you like the more professional setup here than my home studio, but I'll still do a lot from the home studio from time to time. But I wanted to do something a little different here and try out a new camera and, see how this fit for everybody out there, because I see everybody else looking so professional, so clean and looking, and I wanted to try to just, step up the game a little bit as well for the new year as a podcaster and a YouTube responder, if you will. So last week, if you hear my Broadcasters podcast, you can find it at broadcasterspodcast.com. I'll have the link for it in the description. I talked about iHeartMedia, and I used to work for them when it was called Clear Channel from 2002 to 2005. And when I worked with them, what I did was board operation, production, did some producing a little bit here and there, and some commercial cutting. That's pretty much the extent of what I got to do. And all I can tell you is that the environment in there, first of all, the way that the feel of the program department was so depressing. The sales department always had nice brand new computers, cubicles, clean area. Programming was always given bad machinery, bad chairs, bad cubicles. Basically, the leftovers of other stations is what they got. And that's the way they treat people in the program department over there. Because in radio, especially corporate radio, they do not care about the talent. They just don't. And for those that are talented, that are on radio hosting programming, they're doing it for their audience. And they know there's an audience that's still out there of a great size that still want to be a part of this. But what's going on now is there's a lot of things being made where the opportunities to entertain without the bullshit of everything that's going on in terms of management, in terms of cuts, in terms of resources, lack of resources, all of that. And iHeartMedia has been doing that for 20 years now. And they did another round of cuts to the tune of about 1,200 employees out of a 17,000 employee base. Another 1,200 employees were cut, mostly in small to medium markets, and the same thing for their regional programming directors. Those were all eliminated positions, top-level positions, as a matter of fact. And the idea is basically corporate radio, and with iHeartMedia being the first, they're basically eliminating local radios altogether. They don't care. They want to be a national brand of stations, but they also want to do it a certain way that's just really stupid. But people wanted to find out what was it about iHeartMedia that decided, well, why are we going to go ahead and do this? Why do we go ahead and make the changes here? Why do we want to get rid of all this talent? I mean, you've already cut things to the bone so much. Why do we want to do this here? Well, the story from Lance Venta at RadioInsight.com says a lot. So let's get into it. He says what led to this week's actions by iHeartMedia. And we're going to go back to where they start off. The idea of why they do what they do is because the money that they're using, that they're getting from the cuts, from the micromanagement that they're doing of their product, what they decide to do is they will go ahead and buy products that will replace talent, actual physical hands, physical bodies. That's the idea. So getting into the story, there were early cuts that were made in the 2000s following the 1988 purchase of Profit Systems. This is the computer system that basically works as a server that runs and programs all automated voice tracks, commercials, promos, sweepers, everything. So a station runs complete without anybody actually necessarily having to push buttons. I worked on this system. It's what they use today, and it's continually updated. It's pretty good. It's actually a very good program, so I can't complain about what they do with it. So you program it 1 day, 2 days ahead. That's what the program directors are doing. They don't have any input into what's being put into the programming. They don't have a say as to what happens. The people that are in charge of the radio stations, all they're doing is managing what the on top is saying. That's it. So early cuts were made following the purchase of Profit Systems. which allows for the beginning of easily performed voice tracking as continuous deal making, rolled Capstar, Chancellor, J-Core, and other companies into Clear Channel. Over the years, the company would gain control of MediaBase. MediaBase is kind of like what SoundScan was for the Billboard charts. So you could track how many the songs that were being played on the radio at each station and how many times they were being played, positive, negative spins. So they could calculate what was being played on the air as an accurate representation of what was on the radio so that record companies knew the stats, the advertisers and more knew what the stats were. And very small amount really accounts to what the Billboard charts actually represent today. Now, they also bought Katz Media. Katz Media is an ad representation firm. Katz Media is where all the national ads, so like for Geico, Progressive, or Home Depot, or what have you, they're all getting their ads put into, they're buying big deals from Katz Media, and then basically as either a barter or some kind of a deal that's being made. The stations are not necessarily making money off of it. The national advertising deals are all going and being pipelined into Katz Media. That's what they do. Then there's Jelly, which is a programmatic firm that if you want to have music that's being played in real time, that can be requested. And people can actually, put, actually voicemail requested songs on the air. That can be done as well. But that's what that program does. And there were a couple of stations experimentally that have actually run with that format 24 hours a day in a pop and rock format. I don't know if they're still on, but that was another idea. Then they have been named Jelly, Jelli. Now, press release from iHeart talking about what they were doing. And let's move more into what's happening. The real shit that they've been doing to their employees and how badly they just want to automate everything and make it where they can do radio without having anybody be accountable by it. They want it to be completely robotic and automated. Artificial intelligence, that is the key for them. Now, they said they made significant investments as it has made in technology and artificial intelligence. And what does it mean? That says many of the cuts on the programming side have come from the elimination of regional and market senior vice presidents of programming, of which there wasn't that many, but there's enough. I think it was in 6 areas regionally. Many markets have relied on the company is used to call premium choice music logs and voice trackers to fill non-locally originating parts of their schedule. So yes, from bigger market stations, that talent will actually voice for other stations. And they have to kind of play like they're being local when sometimes they can't pronounce a city or a street or even know where anything is at. And they're not going to be at the event either, so they don't care about that. Now, from talking to many people, according to Lance Venta here, he says that this is an important thing right here. Let me highlight this for you right here. The remaining local program directors will no longer directly schedule music at their stations. That's telling you they have no say. That's not what it was. Program directors, from years, they were the arm of where the direction of everything, from the talent to the music to the contest to everything. They had the autonomy under the direction of the management and of corporate. Now they have nothing, no control whatsoever. They are just puppets being pulled by strings. Now, here's what they did say, that they will still have the ability to suggest additions or removals. Oh, that's great. Of songs for the stations, but the actual playlist will be done on the corporate level. The AI powering is meant to include the usage of media monitors, media-based and other licensed data streams to go into RCS's G selector, which is what runs into the Prophet system, so that you can program the Prophet system to automate a full day's programming. And it will weigh the amount of spins songs should get and determining playlist order. But remember, who's adding the input into all this research and all these platforms? Corporate. They're not taking into account what's on streaming. They're not taking into account what songs might be viral. If you're one of Broadcaster's podcast, the 2 top iHeartMedia radio stations that get the most billing, there are 2 top 40 radio stations in New York and Los Angeles. The song Old Town Road by Lil Nas X was one of the least played songs of a song that was number 1 on the Billboard charts for 19 weeks, a record-breaking song. And the song was not even played in full heavy rotation at any time. They didn't care. When they had no control over what the music is, but they have control over Taylor Swift or Post Malone or Halsey or what have you, and then other artists are out there and they can't get a song on the radio, well, that's because of this right here. Because what's going to be done right here through Media Monitor's Media Base, these are all controlled. There's no real audience input. If it is, it's limited. Only on what these services provide. Not anything to do with what the audience is asking for. So listener requests, what people think should be on the radio, it doesn't matter to them. They don't care. They don't care what you think. Not at all. Now, these technological advancements, they have eliminated many of the programming and on-air jobs. Similar technological, and this is the other thing that's even worse. That's not even being talked about. The same thing of integrations are being made to allow cuts on the sales and engineering ends. So the sales and engineers, the people that are the backbone, the people that are monetizing your stations, and the engineers that are keeping your stations on the air to make sure your ads are playing, your stations are on the air, they're going to get cut too. Multiple engineers have stated to RadioInsight that they've been required to diagram all their wire configurations at studios and transmitters and turn over all passwords to corporate in order for their monitoring systems to be integrated. The company is also moving all IT work to the national level, which saw the exit of a few engineers just last week as part of the layoffs. The company is also moving all IT work to the national level, which saw now the national CATS media firm and Jelly's programmatic buying software on the top of the revenue brought in to the iHeartRadio app and the podcast network already have shrunk the reliance on local market sales, making them expendable. So iHeartMedia makes more money with their ad system in their platform, in their app. And they think they could just make more money using that and using that same technology towards radio sales. So they don't need anybody coming in to help out with the rest. And then the engineers, they're basically telling them, well, this is how we do our jobs. So we're telling you how our jobs are done with full transparency, the full process, so you can automate it. So they're basically filling out their paperwork so they can have a little bit of time to transition out of a job they will no longer have. Because their job, they're basically helping to make their job obsolete. That's what it is. And it's horrible. And of course, this is a company that's allowed to do this. Meanwhile, they're still making their cuts. They're still in bankruptcy, well, not bankruptcy, but they're still in debt. So here's what's going on now when it comes to iHeartMedia, and they're allowed to do this even though they're in debt. They're not even a performing company that's in the black. They're still in the red after 20 years. Well, iHeartMedia's cut its debt from $16.1 billion to $5.75 billion. It gave the majority of the company's equity to the debt holders, and they want their money. Now, Liberty Media's Sirius XM Group has already submitted to the Department of Justice a proposal to increase their current 4.8% stake in iHeartMedia. And that is the only reason that iHeartMedia's IPO, their stock price, has gone up at any time since May 2019, since it restarted up again. The deal may require the company to divest assets on both sides, but there's concern that ad revenue concentration will be too high for the Department of Justice to allow the deal to go through, but the purging of staff and operating costs associated will increase iHeart's bottom line to put more money in the hands of debt holders and make the company more attractive to the outside buyer. They care about their debt holders, who they owe. They don't give a shit about the listeners, the talent, and the people that are the backbone and the infrastructure of their radio stations. They think that they can automate everything with limited management, all controlled at the national level. There we go. Moving along here, they also said that there's a lot of talk about how the company's framing the cuts as being how they would structure the company if they were a startup that was handed 800 plus local stations. Used to be 1,200, but they had to divest some of those because of their debt. Also, getting rid of towers that ran these transmitters to run these stations that they used to own. They sold them so they could lease them instead, and also lease the buildings that they're in instead of owning them. So if so, wouldn't they have just built a number of national brands and staffed accordingly, which is what BBC does? England, you have national brands and stations with local outlets. They could have done that. I don't know why they don't, but that's their thing. Bob Pittman, this is a bullshit line at the end. Bob Pittman has overseen the evolution of iHeartMedia into a national radio and events behemoth. But rather than be his legacy, it may now be clearly putting the final nail to the coffin of many strong local media brands. And that's what they're doing. They're destroying the institution of radio and what it was for, to serve the local public. They're not serving anybody but their debtors, their corporate hands, and themselves. And they are single-handedly ruining the radio business. And it's a shame. It's not what we want. And local radio doesn't have a chance because the biggest signals, the biggest towers, the biggest transmitters, the biggest frequencies, the most reach are by corporate radio, not just Clear Channel or now iHeartMedia, Entercom, Cumulus, Town Square Media, and others. They all own these stations. You know what they're going to do? They're going to follow the same suit as iHeartMedia. Is this really what we want for radio? Anyway, hope you liked the video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Look at the descriptions below or where you can find my other podcasts. And I'll talk to you next time.